I am not bound to win, but I am bound to be true. I am not bound to succeed, but I am bound to live by the light that I have. I must stand with anybody that stands right, and stand with him while he is right, and part with him when he goes wrong. These are the words of our 16th President, Abraham Lincoln. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the significance of Abraham Lincoln's presidency. I will discuss his younger years, his political career, and finally what he did for the United States. First, let's talk about his younger years. Abraham Lincoln was born in a log cabin on February 12, 1809, in Hardin County, Kentucky. His parents were Thomas Lincoln and Nancy Hanks Lincoln. He had two siblings, Sarah and Thomas, although he died at infancy. At the age of 9, his mother died of milk sickness, and the event was very devastating on him. A few months after Nancy's death, Thomas married Sarah Bush Johnston, a Kentucky widow with 3 children of her own. Lincoln quickly bonded with Sarah. She encouraged him to read. It was while he was growing into manhood that he received his formal education. This schooling was limited to 3 brief periods in local school, as he had to work constantly to support his family. In March 1830, the family moved to Macon County, Illinois. At this time, 22-year-old Lincoln decided to set out on his own. He got a job working on a river flatboat, hauling freight down the Mississippi River to New Orleans. Lincoln eventually moved to New Salem, Illinois, where he worked as a shopkeeper, postmaster, and general store owner. According to biography.com, Lincoln taught himself law, passing the bar examination in 1836. For the next few years, he worked in Springfield, Illinois as a lawyer, earning his reputation as Honest Abe and serving clients ranging from individual residents of small towns to national railroad lines. Now that you know more about Lincoln's younger years, let's discuss his political career. Lincoln became involved in local politics as a supporter for the Whig Party. Winning election to the Illinois state legislature in 1834, Lincoln opposed the spread of slavery to the territories and had a grand vision of the expanding United States. With a focus on commerce and cities rather than agriculture, Abraham Lincoln served a single term in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1847 to 1849. He was the lone Whig from the state of Illinois. He spent his term speaking out against the Mexican-American War. His criticism of the war made him unpopular back home, and he decided not to run for a second term. However, events conspired to push him back into politics. In 1854, Congress passed the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which replaced the Missouri Compromise and allowed individual states and territories to decide for themselves whether to allow slavery. The law provoked violent opposition in Kansas and Illinois and gave rise to the Republican Party. On October 16, 1854, before a large crowd in Peoria, he debated the merits of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, denouncing slavery and its extension and calling the institution a violation of the most basic tenets of the Declaration of Independence. With the Whig Party in ruins, Lincoln joined the new Republican Party, formed largely in opposition to slavery's extension into the territories. He campaigned unsuccessfully for the Senate seat in 1885 and 1858. Although he lost the election, Lincoln's performance made his reputation nationally. History.com says that in the early 1860s, Lincoln delivered another rousing speech at NYC's Cooper Union. Afterwards, the Republicans chose him as their candidate for president, passing over Senator William H. Seward of New York and other powerful contenders in favor of the rangy Illinois lawyer with only one undistinguished congressional term under his belt. Lincoln received not quite 40% of the popular vote, but he carried 180 of the 303 electoral votes. We talked about Lincoln's political career leading up to his presidency. Now we will discuss what he did as a president of the United States. Before his inauguration in March of 1861, 7 southern states had seceded from the Union, and by April, the U.S. military installation Fort Sumter was under siege in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. In the early morning hours of April 12, 1861, the guns stationed to protect the harbor blazed toward the fort, signaling the start of America's costliest and most deadly conflict. The Union's Army's first year and a half of battlefield defeats made it especially difficult to keep morale up and support for a reunification of the nation. With the hopeful but by no means conclusive Union victory at Antietam on September 22, 1862, Abraham felt confident enough to reshape the cause of the war from union to abolishing slavery. Shortly after the Battle of Antietam, Lincoln issued a preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, which took effect January 1, 1863, and freed all of the slaves in the rebellious states, but left those in the border states, those loyal to the Union, in bondage. Though Lincoln once maintained that his paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union, and is not either to save nor destroy slavery, he nonetheless came to regard emancipation as one of his greatest achievements, and would argue for the passage of the constitutional amendment outlawing slavery. This is a picture of Lincoln in November of 1863. He delivered a brief speech, just 272 words, at the dedication ceremony for the new National Cemetery at Gettysburg. The Gettysburg Address elegantly expressed the war's purpose, harking back to the Founding Fathers, the Declaration of Independence, and the pursuit of human equality. By 1864, the Confederacy had hunkered down to guerrilla war, and Lincoln was convinced that he'd be a one-term president. His nemesis, George B. McClellan, the former commander of the Army of the Potomac, challenged him for the presidency, but the contest wasn't even close. Lincoln received 55% of the popular vote and 212 of the 243 electoral votes. On March 28, 1865, General Robert E. Lee, commander of the Army of Virginia, surrendered his forces to the Union. General Grant and the war was over. Lincoln did more than just manage the Civil War and abolish slavery. He established the Tax Revenue Act of 1862, the Morrill Act of 1862, and the Homestead Act, also passed in 1862. He also created the Department of Agriculture and formally instituted the Thanksgiving holiday. Tragically, Lincoln would not live to help carry out the rest of his vision of reconstitution. On April 14, 1865, a Confederate sympathizer, John Booth, slipped into the president's box at Ford's Theater in Washington and shot him in the back of the head. Lincoln would spend the next 9 hours in a coma until he passed away in the early morning hours of April 15, 1865. At the Gettysburg Address, Abraham Lincoln said these words: "That we here highly resolve these dead shall not have died in vain, that the nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from earth." Although he died an untimely death, I believe that his purpose was fulfilled, and that we are where we are today, largely because of him. Today we talked about the significance of Abraham Lincoln's presidency. We discussed his younger years, his political career, and finally what he did for the United States. I hope that you learned something that you didn't already know about President Lincoln today. Thank you for your time and attention. Have a great day.